At West Tennessee Bank, we speak in simple terms. No big, fancy words or hard to understand language. Just good, old-fashioned values and a strong commitment to the communities we serve. West Tennessee Bank, a division of Decatur County Bank. We think you'll like us. Equal Housing Lender, member FDIC.
All right, there's a quorum present, so we'll go ahead and proceed with the meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda? And, okay, and guys, with the added change in the budget line items that came in late for some reason.
Federal one wasn't approved until yesterday.
Okay, so with that, we will approve the agenda. We have a motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Approved, no, then it is approved. First thing's gonna be the consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
We have a motion second to approve that. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that is approved. Next thing is delegations, and unless Mary wants to address this.
I'm good. I don't have anything.
Well, speaking on behalf of the project graduation, how do you guys, since it's
I make
consistent?
a motion, we go ahead and give them $1,000. So,
We have a motion second to give a project graduation $1,000. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Okay, opposed no, that is passed. And then celebrations, you wanted.
Well, from the November 29th meeting to this one, it was a quick turnaround. Of course, school was wrapping up. We did have these individuals recognized for the local school level teachers of the year. They're a good crop of teachers. One of those right now is already declared as the high school and the district level high school, which is a 9 through 12 split teacher of the year. So she's got 2 status right now just because she's been recognized at the high school, and that was Teresa Krause. But again, announcing these would be Teresa Krause for biology teacher at the high school, and then for the junior high would be Lindley Carpenter, she's an English language arts teacher at the middle school. They have 2 because the grade span is in the district competitions between grades K through 4, and then it starts over 5 through 8. So the middle school, because of their grade configuration, actually gets 2 winners. The 5th grade winner is Lindsay Anthony, she's a special ed teacher, and 4th grade is Misty Thomas, math and science teacher at the middle school. Then the Eastchester winner is Miss Melinda Carroll, a librarian. Jack's Creek's winner is Carrie Cherry, kindergarten teacher, and rounding out Westchester is Janice Whitman, 2nd grade teacher. So these individuals, I'd like to get them recognized in the paper, which we will make sure that happens. And then these ladies have also received congratulations from me, plus additional $25 chamber bucks.
okay, I was going to ask you if we compensate them.
We did. We started doing that last year, so it's, that becomes the norm. But again, they will continue to compete. Thomas is the one that spearheads this now, and they will continue to compete at the district level. That designation is going to be somewhere about mid-January. I'm talking about the teachers of the year.
Yes, that is correct.
And then progressing on hopefully to the regional and on from there. Maybe we'll get another state winner out of this. We don't know, out of the crop. But they're a good group of teachers, good recognition for them.
Send me the list
I will.
tomorrow so I can get it.
Yes, ma'am. You got it.
Okay. All right, we'll move on in. Next thing is approval of the 2019-2020 school calendar, and I think Troy has engaged with teachers, and they've
Those
given
calendars were so close. I mean, other than the start date, wasn't it on?
I started this a few years ago. You remember back several years ago, there was a little discrepancy about start and stop, and we came back and did it again. I said, well, I'm going to do this better, and the way we do better is let the faculty advisory committees from each one of the schools come up with their own option. So they decided among their own staff what options they want to have. Then when we got 6 options, we put it toward a survey that everybody, both teachers and principals, custodians, cafeteria staff, everybody got to weigh in on it. Well, then, once we got everything uploaded into that survey, it was discovered, I should have discovered already, but C and F was the same schedule. They weren't comparing, they were just submitting, but the things that they had to do, you had to have 180 days, you can't start before August 1. So there were some conditions that kind of rule in and rein in. Plus, there's a presidential primary election that's going to be in the year 2020 that we had to go back and then make as a staff development day. State law now requires that, even though we did it anyway. because of East, West, and Jacks Creek being used for polling. Now they require us by state law that when you use your schools for polling, there are no students there. So either you just call it a day off. For us, we get to count it as a school day and just use it for staff development for teachers, which has proven worthwhile. So when we got through that first round of surveys, these two options were the closest. So we re-surveyed, and you can see the discrepancy between them both. They were still really close, but based on and this is what we told the teachers, educators who provided their feedback, that I would offer the one with the highest percentage. So that's what I'm doing. There were 170 that completed the survey. 93 of them chose options C and F. So that's my recommendation, going with the highest percentage.
That motion approves C and D.
Second. We have a motion and a second approving calendar 2019-2020 for option C and F. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed,
I was
no.
wondering about C and F.
No, that says C and F.
Yeah.
All right, next thing we're going to look at is policy revision and some recommendations on that.
Again, met with Shane earlier this month, the 7th, and we reviewed section 4, which is instructional services. There were a few of those that were just, we started first by looking at those that had the oldest date, issue date, or revision date, and then to see if there's any language within that needs correction. What we came across were these examples. For most of these, like for special education and a few others, it needed just revision. Special education was still, our policy was still using a term called an M team. It's no longer being utilized. It's an IEP team. So when our conversation, I had shared that it probably needs to be upgraded, and when I got a copy of their draft, which is included in your packet, you can see that language has changed. So for 4.202, it was just updating our language to mimic what the current TSBA language is. It's the same information as far as the requirements by that policy. It just updates the terminology. Then the other ones, 4.209, 4.210, 4.601, 4.602, 4.605, and those are in that section 4. Those were just needing updated because of the high school. They're on a trimester schedule. The terminology in there for the high school labeling was still using terminology from like the old 90-day semesters. So it's just, nothing has changed other than language in most. Also, in the graduation requirements, we had upgrade. If you remember, when they went to a trimester schedule, it was a steady upgrade. We're at that upgrade up to 25 credits required for graduation, but that policy specifically was still showing 22. And then there was one other one that I wanted to make mention. Yes, it's under that same 4.605 graduation requirements. If you have those who are in pursuit of an early graduate, it said that the state law requires earning 18 credits. That's what it used to be, but now state law requires 22 credits. So again, most of this stuff was just updating the language that was in there to reflect what we're currently doing, and that came out of committee of Shane and I to recommend these for your consideration. Let me just say quickly, the 5.701, that's not the policy section that we reviewed, but that came from TSBA. Either that was Jennifer White or Emily Warren. One of the two ladies there said that the current policy that the state board supports has removed a maximum number of days that a retired teacher can substitute. It used to read, as ours does, 90 days, but the state law has removed that. So it was their recommendation to us that we also remove that. So that's what 5.701. Nothing else changed in it other than the removal of the maximum number of days that a retired teacher could
Get substitute teachers.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. So it's my recommendation that we approve these revisions as requested.
Make a motion to approve.
and since Mary is the only one here out of the office that is not familiar with it, I had it set up to where we could view it online, but that was going to be for the benefit of the guests who may be here. Would you want to see this, the example of it, state report card? I'm just giving you the option. The access that you have here in your agenda will get you there to be able to look at it. It is released already to the public awareness. I'm hoping that with what I sent Mary, that she and I will have a follow-up conversation that'll have a little bit more details about it. But I shared with you some pros and some cons about the results of it. Again, if you remember, this report card, state report card data, is over the 17-18 state data. Remember the issues that we had last spring with the testing? That's being manifest here. So some of the lack of success that we used to realize at the junior high school, at the high school, was partly because of the connectivity issues that we faced. Actually, yesterday, there was some outside auditor that reviewed the results of Questar, who was the provider for last year's test. And there were several findings that were not very positive and supportive of the State Department regarding the testing. Did you see it?
Yeah.
TSBA sent that out, I believe, too. So that was no new news other than the fact that this reporting was done, this audit was done, and they shared their findings. So, and again, one of the findings was that school districts like Chester County would be one in particular that were impacted negatively by the results. Now, those results really impacted the high school more than the others, but the lower grades still had to face some situations where students opened textbooks to take their test and there'd be pages missing, or when they had pages that were out of number. So some of the printing issues came up at the lower grades, even with the hard copies that they had to use. This Questar response to some of that was that they didn't realize the enormity of having to do that many kids tested. Because when they also did New York, they also did, I want to say it was Mississippi, but they didn't test as many kids as Tennessee does. That's part of the issue. So they weren't prepared for the largeness of that test block, especially with connectivity. I will visit with Mary. There are things that are positive. Again, we had the East Chester was recognized a reward school for that year, for this year, and they've got their banners flying high. And as you can see there, even though we faced circumstances at the school, at the high school specifically with the connectivity, still across the district, we had a 2% higher in mathematics from the previous year, district-wide. We also improved our performance with social studies and science. And with math, not only did we go 2% higher than the previous year, which is still not great, but it's improvement. It was still higher than the state average. So there were some things overall that we did well as a district, but we are targeting those areas that we need to improve on. And what you gentlemen have here in 1, 2, 3 are the 3 major goals for our district improvement plan. And we have been meeting with our school leaders at all the schools except for East, West, and Jacks Creek. We had to postpone our last meeting, but we have what's called data chats till we look at the results that they have thus far with their formative assessments and looking for any type of things to recognize for celebration, but also any things that we need to be critical of and seeing what the next steps to improve are. So we've done that for high school, junior high, and the middle school, but we're still yet to do it for East, West, and Jacks Creek. Any questions with that?
No questions, we'll move on to the consideration of adjustments to the school.
What you have, what you have in the yellow is, and again, this is the narrative that I share with you gentlemen. This is what Presley Connor provided me earlier in the year. And I had this as early as October, but as I shared with Shane, being the dad of Presley, I wanted to get some impact and input from the principals who would be having to enforce this. What would what their feedback would be. And I had, as I included there with the listing, these are the principals that repeated back to me their feedback. And of their feedback, I'm just going to follow their recommendation. They were all in agreement with the outerwear and jackets, that portion that I've included in your board agenda for a change, Right now, the lightweight jackets require a solid color without hood. And the suggested change that came from the students, this is what Presley, I just copied and pasted into the agenda. As you can see from the yellow page, this was the entire recommendation page of hers. But instead of just a solid color, a two-tone light jacket. So a lot of the styles, I'm thinking about the North Face, it is a style that most kids wear, or a lot of kids wear. Is always seems to be a two-tone color, or a lot of them are two-tone color. So that was
Black and white.
that was the recommendation that the principals were satisfied with. The majority of them wanted to keep, like I said, the current dress code current. So my recommendation, it does, of course, you have the policy in here. The policy is one of those specifically, it's not a general policy, it's very specific. So you guys are responsible for making the adjustments.
Just to clarify too, this wasn't just Presley.
I know, that's true.
She gathered the
That's
information
correct.
from a student board,
Yeah.
basically.
And there were about 8 or 10 kids that
Right.
met with me and her and Dr. Catlett back in the spring of last year. So yes, I'm sorry I didn't make that clear, but it was not just a Presley. Well, Presley is, you know, she's the spokesperson for the world. I mean, she don't really speak. You can't get her to
She's
talk.
so bashful.
But yeah, this was recommendations across the high school students.
Because I hadn't even talked to her about it till I got this, and she was fine with it. A lot of these were other students that she just compiled. I asked her, and she didn't know. The one question I would have is, what was the issue? I agree that all of them are fine the way they are. But the one that I kind of could see the change, but wasn't recommended, is what would be the issue with the school-issued shirts and jackets? I mean, it seems like if clubs are trying to sell them, the increase in opportunity to wear them would help out, you know, to provide more revenue for the clubs.
Well, based on the feedback that I got, it may have not had a full, some of the principals, when they offered feedback, may not have read it with great detail.
Right.
I did have one, Clay Murley, who asked for some more principal discretion with the very thing that you're talking about. Because a few years ago, when this started, back in 2010, 9, 10, something like that?
Yeah, 8, 9, 10,
that
something.
then a year or two later, we came back and made some revisions then, and part of those revisions were, just like with the logos that you guys have, is allowing each club, each sporting group, to determine a series of shirts that would be acceptable, that would not necessarily adhere to the strictness of the original dress code, but would be within school spirit. So they all do have school spirit shirts that they are allowed to wear on occasion. But also the sporting teams, not, you know, because you didn't want to say that the kids could only dress out of code with their jersey on. You know, you want to have them to have opportunities too. So Clay Murley did offer the suggestion, but he was the only one that offered a suggestion of allowing some principals to have the discretion. And there is some discretion given to principals with it, but maybe not to the details that he had in what you're describing.
But the way the policy reads, it goes against it, but the principal can have discretion.
Well, there is a little avenue that allows the principal's discretion.
Okay.
And years ago, like I said, when Sherry and John offered some revisions to the initial, that was a directive to me as a principal to recruit each one of the clubs, sporting groups, to come up with their own logo. So we had a series of logo styles that we approved for them to have. And that's what they would use. Of course, a lot of it was like for football and athletics was the Screaming Eagle design that you got on your tops.
Make a motion to approve the adjustment.
Second.
All right, we have a motion second to approve adjustments in dress code. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That is approved. And the next thing, we had a few updates. Anybody have any questions about those that were sent out? My questions, baseball, anything?
I haven't had any more conversation with Jeff Vaughn about that. Jeff Vaughn is still, again, the last conversation he's got the plans done. He was building up the specs so it could be published, but I don't have any further information about that. More recently, I've talked to him about the punch list and we still have to have a follow-up with the punch list. It has not, Britt and I went in, actually, like in one of the bathrooms.
They still haven't got shelf in it.
No, it doesn't. But already starting to have a little, it sounded like a bearing going down in the boys' bathroom. And there was also some questions about the wiring. You know, they've got a lot of the motion sensor lights, but you know, in the bathrooms, the light switch for the lights is on the motion sensor, but the exhaust fan is on a regular light switch. Kids can just turn it off when they walk out. You know, seemed like you would want that on the, also on the
I think
sensor.
they're
I
all,
thought they'd be doing together.
Well, I know in the main building, they stay on 24/7, which I didn't think that was good either, because there's no use in having an exhaust fan going like during the breaks when nobody's gonna be in the bathroom. You knew that it was a problem when it went down, when the odor really began to reek. But the motion sensor would be beneficial to have that, you know,
they're gonna switch it.
light switch.
No,
Oh, I don't know.
The exhaust fan.
I hadn't been in there enough to know. I know the light switch is on the new part.
Yeah, the new part's off. I think they're on switch too.
But there are some questions like, it looks like in one of the door facings in the PACE lab that goes into the records room, or no, the classroom, one of the two classrooms. Some heavy piece of equipment hit that metal door facing at the very bottom and caused it to have a little crease, and that crease has caused a little bit of that metal to stand out, so it's got a little bit of sharp edge on it. Something that's not noticeable, the person who painted it did their very best to keep it
cover
from
it
being
up.
visible. But you can see the wrinkle of where something hit it heavy, and it had to be heavy because that's a heavy door facing. So there's some things still yet to be finished. We've still got the residual out, so that won't be paid until we get the affirmation that everything's done.
The roof on the high school, that is just the original old part, right?
Correct. That would be, and you know, Britt had written up the PV, or the RFP. It hadn't been published yet, as best I know, of course.
It was in the paper, it was in the paper.
Fantastic, okay, well, that was 2
That's
weeks
right.
ago he asked, so, what's the date?
The 8th or
Is there a
9th.
walk around, is there a walk around already scheduled?
They didn't mention that.
I
It
just printed it for someone that came in
Okay.
and asked for one.
Okay, well, I know that makes a routine of having an early go on site to go view it.
It didn't.
It didn't
have
say,
that.
okay. But it'll be, more than likely, since it's the first and only roof, it will have another TPO set up, would be probably the best economical option. But again, the way the RFP's written, they can provide whatever option they feel like is best. But that would be for the whole roof. If you notice the crane out there today, they're putting new units. We're getting air
Well,
conditioning
yeah, I knew
units,
the units were on.
placing all units, so that'll be nice to get those done. And if you, like at the new wing, I don't know if I mentioned it to you, but at the old building, the majority of the classrooms had 4-ton units, now they're 3-ton units. So that just shows you in the course of 20 years how much more efficient things have gotten. Hopefully it will lower sizable electric bills.
I don't know, you go in some of the rooms are about 30 degrees. I mean,
That's your
You-
August weather.
and you can hang meat in some of them. I mean, I like cold, but now those are cold.
Well, when my kids are carrying jackets to, light jackets to August and September weather classrooms, and it is challenging.
All right, anybody else have anything on?
Would you get me a copy of that county audit deal? I meant to ask about that, because it said if we wanted a full copy of it, we had to get with you or with 3 or 4 of the other people that had access to
State,
it. Of the county.
Do we have that?
from the state.
Yeah,
yeah,
Comptroller's office?
yeah.
It's on their website too, just.
It wouldn't come up when I tried to open it up. I got last year's, it's all like, the previous years.
We can either print it or use a link either way.
Print will be, now do you want to see it for the entire county?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the only way they publish it.
Okay.
Anything else? All right, then our next meeting will be on Thursday, January the 24th. Board building here, so
Did y'all like having it at different locations? I know you had mentioned it, Norris.
I like, of course, I didn't get to the high school, but I did like.
How do you know if you like it at high
I went
school?
to the junior high. We had one at the junior high. Didn't we? Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
But I can schedule these. I thought about it, even for this next one, but rather than just alternating. But I can make arrangements for the middle school, East Chester, West Chester, Jacks Creek. I know that's a little bit of a stretch.
Show up at the wrong one, wrong school.
Wouldn't be bad.
I know other school districts, I know Hardeman County does that through the course of their year. They move it at different locations, and then they have something like a spotlight from their setting. You know, of course, if you haven't gone to the schools, they were all decorated really nice during the Christmas holidays.
Let's do, and kind of gives the school a show off a little bit, you know, first time.
I will,
We'll go here next to
Some of the
24th, and then after
East
that.
West Jacks Creek, though, it's not the place to meet in the gym. We got libraries.
you can kind of,
Cafeteria.
cafeteria.
Well, cafeteria, but you got to,
I mean,
well,
I don't know if we could have held that.
Get those
with
seats, we
tonight.
We could have held in the lobby of each school.
Yeah.
Those cafeterias, middle school, that's when those two girls, Joy and Joyce, I always want our class reunion out there.
Oh, really?
I'm gonna tell you what, those little seats we had in there are not conducive
No,
to me.
we would make sure that we had better.
I'm glad you'd have to go to,
Those are the stools.
Yeah,
and that's what the East and West do.
and to get on one of them, it's hard to
East and
get
West
on.
is tough. When they do their make pay deal, I mean, it's,
Yeah.
You're down about this high.
yeah.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion with you. I second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.